Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. On this early morning episode here, it's about 1:20 in the morning. Today's episode, I think, is pretty important. And I'm going to call this Indoctrination Stations, which is going to sound kind of goofy. If you guys can think of a shorter name, put it in the comments below. But I'm filling up my car today with gas. And I can't believe that I didn't have this perception of this thing a lot earlier. But now in America, I'm sure they're in your neighborhood as well, if you're not here, the gas station pumps have televisions in them. This has been going on for quite a while. But they have televisions in them, and the second you start pumping your gas, oh boy, here comes the propaganda through the gas station pump. Now sometimes it's silly little things about, Christmas or whatever, But that's how you wrap it up, right? What is it? Sugar's wrapped by insulin so that it enters the cell. So you reverse all that and you put propaganda inside of a fuzzy, warm sugar wrapper and you smuggle it into the brain. Now, from time to time, I will travel quite a bit. Not a big fan of traveling myself because I hate airports. I think they're poorly run most of the time, even if they're pretty. It's kind of fun when you land, obviously, and you're going to some place that's kind of cool. But airports, we all know, have turned into gigantic propaganda machines. And it is on the level of, you're getting inside the airport and automatically you see TVs everywhere. And you'll see TVs that are obviously showing you where the departures and arrivals are, perhaps little help desk tutorials about where to go, interactive ones that sell you your tickets. But then you start moving into the airport towards your terminal. And in America, I'm going to say it is 60 to 70% all liberal news. And let's just rebrand that as fake news, as ultra propaganda. And when we think of the old saying that the easiest way to brainwash a human being is repetition, it's what's going on with all the climate lies that are going on. It's indoctrination about how we should perceive other countries or ourselves, both in a negative and a positive. It's pretty amazing that we're supposed to, in one fell swoop, hate the Middle East and constantly rationalize going over and killing people over there. And on the other hand, Europe is supposed to let them all into their nations. Well, take your pick. We're supposed to all be vegans and we're all supposed to be vegetarians, but if you eat a bunch of stuff and get super fat, then it's bad to shame. Well, take your pick. How many of you remember watching a baseball game or going to a baseball game and there was barely any advertising anywhere? The bleachers that you sat in just simply had maybe the brand of the team painted in paint around the little barrier face. They were really trying to sell you whatever product the teams were competing in the field sold, hats and shirts and whatever. Obviously, home team having the ultimate 95% advantage, but they're never going to miss an opportunity to take some money. You got your beer and your hot dogs and all that good stuff is all being advertised. But what is it today? It's a gigantic LED circus of products you don't need. They now have a green screen behind the batter, such that when anyone's up to bat, they blast advertising behind the guy. So repetition has a lot of value. Repetition can sell an advanced concept and it can sell a brand, familiarity. Okay, well, a politician is a brand, aren't they? Someone's running for president. Well, you're busy and you're not a politics kind of person. So the only thing that you're going to do is probably see a person's name, see a person's face over and over and over again. And when you go to the voting machine, unless someone has told you something very, acidic about that person, you're going to pull the lever for that person because they're the most familiar one. Who's this other guy? I don't even know this other guy. The last election, we had a pretty big runoff locally between a Republican and a Democrat. And even though all of the nasty, nasty stuff was on the Democrat side, I had a friend of mine who did vote for that person. But she said, it pisses me off that I saw way more signs for the left. Not because I dislike the left, she said, but because why didn't that guy run harder? If he wants my vote, he's got to show me he can run harder. I want to see more of his signs, more of his issues, more of this and more of that. Touche, right? There's a movie released in 1985 by John Carpenter called They Live. And it's a re-envisionment of the previous version, which I think I've only seen morsels of it. But the premise of the story is that an actor played by Roddy Piper, God bless him, R.I.P. brother, he's sort of a drifter. He drifts into Los Angeles, and he runs into a kind of a sanctuary city for homeless people. And he's a big tough guy, and he just wants a place to rest for the night while he kind of gets his ball bearings together as to what he's going to do in Los Angeles. And he ends up on the edge of this little sanctuary city in a park. It's daytime, and he sees a crime being committed at a church right next to the sanctuary city. He's watching this, and a preacher's running from some guys, and he runs over to help. And the preacher has a box, like a medium-sized box, and he says, take these away, protect him. And so he's defending this box with his life. And so I can't quite remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'm going to watch it again here. But I think the preacher passes away or what have you, and he's been shot or something like that, and Ronnie runs away with the box. But when he opens the box, it's just a bunch of Ray-Ban Wayfarer sunglasses. They were extremely popular in 1985 because of the reprisal of them through the movie Risky Business by Tom Cruise. So he puts them on, and he looks at the city. And the city looks completely different. I believe everything that he sees through the glasses are black and white, for one thing, which is a really sweet little treatment that Carpenter did. But all of the signs that he reads, all the magazine covers, every piece of advertising in the entire city of Los Angeles, and he's downtown by City Hall, says something else. Consume, obey. Shepard Fairey's whole obey thing came out of the movie They Live. So funny, I wore a big obey, you've seen me wear my obey shirt with the They Live zombie dude on the front. I wore it to Disneyland last time I was there, and it was hilarious. I would walk around, I'd hear people, hear like a guy with his girlfriend, he'd go, have you seen that movie? What movie? They Live. But anybody who's looking at the shirt, thinking it's Shepard Fairey will go, well, that looks weird. But they weren't zombies. What was going on in the movie was that some of the human beings that look like human beings without the glasses on are actually aliens. They kind of look like zombies. But they're hyper intelligent, they talk, and they're among us. Now, what's interesting about that movie and this subject matter is that you have an alien race that infiltrated us and was able to smuggle underneath marketing material propaganda to control us. I think even one of the signs says procreate. We live in that world, and it's not necessary to wear Ray-Ban glasses that have special filters in them to see the alien invasion. It's right in our face, and it's being sold to us as entertainment, which is interesting. Now let's take the world and let's change it in your mind. We do a magic wand on everybody. Boom. What's the magic wand do? It illustrates to everyone that the news is fake, that agencies lie to you, that magazines, newspapers, everything related to media has been usurped. Again, I just mentioned it. It's going to be coming out another episode, the Project Mockingbird, where they indoctrinated a bunch of journalists to go out and push propaganda for reward. But everyone in one fell swoop knows that this is all bad for you. It's all propaganda. Now, if we just leave it like that and people continue to look at it, you would think we're in a Black Mirror, we're in some dystopian 1984 movie, some episode 2, season 1 of Black Mirror, where you are being forced to watch propaganda. And for some reason, the people aren't fighting back. The people aren't saying, turn this shit off. I don't want to be indoctrinated by lies. But that's exactly what's going on. When Roddy Piper takes the glasses and he's pulling them on and off, and he's looking at the world. He's at a newsstand with a bunch of magazines, and he looks at all the magazines, and they're all just covered in alien propaganda. He immediately changes. He's just, what's beautiful about this film is that he's a nobody, as much as nobodies get, the way that they wrote his initial character. And here he is becoming a superhero of sorts against the whole world cabal of the whole place being taken over. You're going to have to watch the movie to figure out how it ends here. But now, aren't we the awakened of this world? Aren't we all Roddy Pipers? And we don't have sunglasses with the filter on them to see the propaganda. We have brains that work. We think for ourselves. And when there are these fake events in the world where, again, people may be getting hurt these days, in the old days, they tried not to hurt anyone at all, or very few people. We watch society throw away their laws. New Zealand just did it. Unbelievable. They create a fake Hollywood event. I mean, fake is fake is fake. And their country just goes, yeah, get rid of all the laws that protect us as the people, moving them closer and closer to a dictatorship, to a globalist dictatorship. The full-blown act of tyranny. Now, I know what a lot of you guys think, and I've thought this too, and I'm changing my mind a little bit, or I'm refining my brain a little bit about this. There are billions of guns in this world. Billions. They go back 100 years. All different calibers and kinds, rifles and shotguns and pistols and automatic weapons and all this other stuff. And in this day and age, if tomorrow somehow America banned guns and a bunch of ignorant people went along with it, we know that you could go to bowling alleys and other weird places and bars and weird joints, and you could find someone who'll sell you a gun. Probably a crate of them. Well, they're hot, and you're going to be in massive trouble for the rest of your life. You'll probably be in prison the rest of your life if you were to be caught with these things. This is the way it is today, even without the law being changed. But we envision the criminals having the guns, and therefore it's not safe for us to be without guns. Now, no one's really worried about the criminals. They're worried about the government. But it's one of those old sayings. It's kind of how when we explain how money works in the Federal Reserve, we try to illustrate to people that the interest we owe on the loans to the world banks is never created, therefore the interest can never be paid back. And that blows people's minds every once in a while. I always give you the analogy. We're sitting at a table, and it's just between you and I, and the outside economy exists, and I loan you $1 and I'm a jerk. I'm going to charge you 10 cents on the dollar for that. And I say, okay, now immediately pay me back. You give me the dollar back across the table, and you go, wait, I'll go find a dime. And you go look in your car, you look in the cushions, look underneath your bed. Sure enough, I might even owe you change by the time you find a nickel or find a quarter or something like that. But in the real world of global economies, there is no dime anywhere else. It was never made. So you will not find any other money anywhere else in the world because I'm the one that gets to create it all if I'm the World Bank. And so immediately I pass you another piece of paper across the table, which is another loan at more interest so that you can get the money that you owe me on the previous loan. So you take a loan to pay off the previous one. But because of compound interest, you're going to lose that game for the rest of your life. You will owe me more, 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 and more. And the only thing you can do to stay out of being collected on or whatever the penalty is continue to borrow from me. With the gun analogy, they would most likely lock down, and this will get back to the propaganda machine here in a second, but they would lock down all the production of weapons in the world and make it just as protected as creating a dollar bill or $100 bill. You can't just go out and make a dollar bill or whatever currency you have. You just can't do it. It's all wild, it's all these layers of foil and holograms and all this other stuff that detects whether or not it's real. Well, guns would be the same way. So once they gathered up all these billions of guns over the course of several decades and made the penalties so formidable, you wouldn't touch a gun. It would be like touching a live ordnance on the ground, right? It could blow up and kill you. It'd blow up and destroy your life. Eventually, the only people that would have guns would be the government. And all these, either smart or not smart soldiers. Remember, they put 110 IQ cap on police officers here in America. All right. Now, hopefully you're just failing the test on purpose to get down to that level. But we know what happened for the, the UN? Kofi Annan's son ran the whole program in in Africa, where they were handing out food to people. And these soldiers were forcing women. I watched videos of this, with my own eyes. The women had to come to the truck that had the rice and the food. They get in the truck and they've outfitted the back of the truck with a place to lie down. And the soldiers have sex with the women, and then the women are allowed to take their rice home. And I don't know anything about the culture, but I would imagine some of these women wouldn't admit that that's what's going on. Now, they don't have guns, but the soldiers that are passing out the rice have guns. So if you're going to, they have guns, but again, it's one of these things where they have to break the law to get what they need to defend themselves. If all the males in the village were to armor up and blow these motherfuckers away, and they just take their own rice and say, look, UN, keep your rice. Keep your rice. And oh, by the way, press, Reuters, AP, everybody, these guys are raping, which they got caught. They got caught. The head of the UN's son got caught running this scam. And whether or not he jumped in the back of a truck and did it at all doesn't matter. He is the proxy by which this corruption occurred. I tell you this little story because I want to re-illustrate how definitive it is that once power gets put in the hands of man, such that they can dominate other men, and I mean mankind, it happens automatically. It happens automatically. It's amazing. What's interesting in living in Southern California, in the region that I live, is that we have a lot of wealthy people. We have trust fund kids. We've got the people that have worked really hard, and they're the first stage earners in their family. But they've got so much money, it's sick, I went down to the beach. I drove around down there, I think it was last week, and there were just Lamborghinis everywhere, and it's an odyssey. It's fun to watch. Because you get to see a car that costs as much as your house drive by, and it's like, wow, what the hell does that guy do to have that vehicle? And you can't help but think that you're smart enough to do the same thing. That's the other funny thing. Now, there's bills that come with those kind of toys that you don't want to have anything to do with. But I have another smoke shop I go to, a different one, that is frequented by these people. And I did sit once. Last time I was there, I think it was full of these trust fund kids. And they were talking about how they were spending their time, going out and doing whatever they did. But they talked about the 20,000 air. And they talked about a person that will definitely drive one of these Lamborghinis. You got to put 20 grand down, you put 2,000 a month in, and then you have like 2,500 mile limit per year. So they're not exactly daily drivers unless you buy the thing yourself. You can do whatever you want with it. But there's a ton of people, according to these guys, that are driving around just on the very brink of bankruptcy to look amazing. And I've had several of my friends in my lifetime get sucked into this algorithm. But now let's go back to these indoctrination stations. Are you, well, let's put it this way. You buy a ticket to fly somewhere. Let's go back to the airport. Do you have the right to not be indoctrinated? Do you have the right to not hear CNN or Fox News or anything else? I think the answer is yes. Think about how many butthurt people out there are saying that, baseball teams have to change their names because some word in the title of their team offends somebody. People can't wear certain clothing to school because it offends somebody. And these people have to pay. I just heard a recent story that a bunch of video games are getting sued because they're not taking into account the seeing eye and, being colorblind. They're not taking into account colorblind settings. So they're getting sued. I have been in airports at times when things are unraveling. These events that are, shootings and all kinds of other stuff is going on. It's unfolding in an airport, and everyone's staring at the monitors and trying to get the latest information, making phone calls and blah, blah, blah. The hysteria that these stations create is very effective for those who are trying to do it. There was a woman that covered a particular school that had an event that Alex Jones is in trouble for, I think, revealing. And she did this really long documentary on YouTube about the layers of social media that have been built up and how they're used to activate the different stages in the mind of man to then propagate. And she talked about how they network the information together to then go to stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 to push into the mind of man lies as truth. And if you've been alive for the last 20 years, you've experienced it so many times. And I think it's maybe time to take a look at what our options are. Now, the ultimate solution would be to say, we don't want this stuff around us at all. You put the gas in your car and you get back in your car. You don't watch the TV. You maybe go to an airport and you bring your headset so you don't have to hear anything. Someone who's got more balls than that and more legal knowledge than I have should probably file suit and say, I don't want to see this crap. I'm not here to watch the news. I'm here to get on a plane and go from point A to point B. I'll look at your TV if it's telling me something about the airport, how it functions, where my flight is, where my relative's flight is, but I don't want to see anything else. You go to a bar, the sports is not a bunch of propaganda. You want to watch your favorite team while you're stuck in a airport for some 4-hour layover and Yankees are playing the Dodgers. Sure, that's not propaganda. You're just watching a game. So that's okay. You want to watch an episode of your favorite television show? That's fine. The television show itself could have its own little embedded nooks and crannies of propaganda, but overall it's a fictional thing that's being portrayed for your entertainment. Cabs, very interesting. About, I don't know when Uber started, but let's just go back 10 years. Within 10 years, 10 years ago, cabs started having these televisions in the back seats. And so the second you ride in the car, you're getting hit with this propaganda. Now think about the people that orchestrate the world. They love this. They think about it as a gigantic brainwashing, mind-numbing technique to say we got them everywhere they go. The second they step out of their house, they're being inundated. And some of these fools turn on the radio and specifically choose to hear propaganda that's aligned with their political party, but because we control it all. Okay. Nothing's going out that doesn't carry our agenda. If some talk show host gets off script for too many days in a row, they're going to get a call by their station manager. The station manager would have gotten a call from somebody else, and they're going to get a warning. You get back on the script or you're out. We'll rotate you out. Happens all the time. Now, obviously, shock jocks and that kind of stuff, Howard Stern kind of people, I think his shtick probably started off as just a very organic thing that he was doing. He had the guts to do it. It was sort of funny because it was really like unique. People didn't talk like he did. He pulled all kinds of really tasteless pranks online, making prank phone calls. But then in the end, because the 90s was all about demoralizing the United States of America, we had a few layers of things happening in the 90s. It doesn't mean that everything created wasn't entertaining, okay? It just means that in the center of probably great entertainment was a demoralizing message. His show takes off. Every single female that's ever been on a Howard Stern episode is asked about their sexual preferences in the most specific, coveted areas that any two people would ever share. And he brings it right up and asks them if they do this particular thing. It's wild that we put up with that stuff. But if you've lived in a world where you had some moral rules in your household, and then you break out and you listen to Howard Stern say things that your parents would never let you say, your grandmother would smack you upside the head if she ever heard you even repeat what he said, you feel like you're like, I'm being naughty, I'm getting away with things. Porn's like that too. We had, again, I've mentioned this several times, The Simpsons. Its entire push is that Bart is cool, his sister's a nerd, and again, when I traveled once, because The Simpsons, it's a hilarious show. The writers of that show are insanely funny. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I got friends who've seen every single episode since it started. I remember the first 5 episodes I thought were the most ingenious cartoon scripts I'd ever seen in my life, but I wasn't paying attention to how it was brainwashing the other side until I flew back to my home state. I was in Wichita, Kansas. I had just flown in. My mom picked me up. I wanted to get some pizza at the mall. We go to the mall, and I started seeing T-shirts worshiping Bart Simpson, and I can't remember exactly how the caption worked, but the caption on the shirt was, "Being a loser is cool." That's what it meant. And I'm looking at it going, oh, wow, this is crazy. Like, kids are looking at that shirt going, I want to wear this shirt. I'm going to be an F-plus student. I'm not going to have a life. I'm going to take shit on everybody who's smart, creating more sociopathic nerds in this world. What was the 2 most popular forms of music, at least in the United States? I apologize again. I don't know what's going on in other countries. Over here in the States, we had grunge music, and then we had gangster rap. Now, grunge music was a bunch of privileged white kids pretending to be broke and pretending to have these depressing lives because they grew up with a giant silver spoon in their mouth. Again, Alanis Morissette was anything but a poor kid, and she went around and portrayed herself and dominated the whole decade. She's one of the most memorable voices, and she created some amazing songs. I mean, again, the music is not to be criticized, but the message and the overall tone of, hey, let's all go off to Salvage Army places and go buy our clothes and let's live like we're poor. Unreal. People in my family got caught up in this. I did not. Gangster rap. Well, when you look at NWA and their whole goal of showing the world what it was like to live in South Central, hey, you can get behind that because they were trying to expose police brutality, drugs, the Crips and the Bloods, all that stuff that was going on that nobody knew anything about. And I think they were largely successful, but they lived in it. It made sense to me. But then what was their message? Their message was to stop police brutality and stop this degradation of their neighborhoods, and they wanted things in life, and all those dudes got those things in life, didn't they? But the previous decade, in the 80s, you had a bunch of rappers coming out saying, get out of the ghetto, do not do drugs. White Lines, remember that song? You know, LL Cool J's whole mantra was getting what you wanted in life, stop whining and moaning about how things are hard, just do it. Focus, man. All right. It's been 25 years since that style of music was hatched into the culture of America, and we're still suffering by its standards today. I mean, Nipsey Hussle just got blown away. And a lot of people think he got blown away because he was promoting a bunch of lucid thoughts, and especially about some cancer cures. I look at the video of him getting shot, and I just think, well, it's too bad that he was all tied up in the gangster world, because now that he's been shot, history books aren't going to have any problem saying he was shot by one of his fellow gangster guys. And quite frankly, he might have been. But how many great minds have we lost because they got shot by somebody? And I think there's some brilliant rappers out there right now that got one toe in the gangster world and one toe in the wake up world, and they're a target. It's not a mystery that Tupac was blown away by a corrupt LA cop, that he was set up by Suge Knight. It's not a mystery that Biggie Smalls was blown away in front of the Peterson Car Museum here in LA with a bunch of CIA guys walking around with headsets on. That's a fact. So these two guys were murdered to end this feud, to probably advance some other agenda of which I am unaware of. But now think about what we're trying to do. Let's say you're a truther and pick your favorite subjects. You're probably pounding your social media, you're talking to your friends, but how much do you get their ear? You're talking for a post, you're talking for maybe 30 minutes to a friend, maybe a couple hours to a friend, but the second they leave you, they're back at the gas station, they're back at the airport, they're back inside their car listening to the radio. Perhaps they turn this crap on when they go home. Maybe everything that they subscribe to in social media is full of this stuff. You do want to know what's going on in the world, so you got a problem. You're going to watch the news, look at the news, and if you don't have a filter for how to disseminate things that are manipulating propaganda, then through sheer repetition, it will be physically and mentally difficult for you to constantly erase the BS that's been injected into your mind. So now the new game in town, and most of you are completely aware of this, is to create some alter ego thing online that has this feeling of truth, perhaps disseminates 80% truth, 90% truth, predicts the future even, has insider information, and then poof, it turns out to be a complete ruse and you've been had. All of us who believe it. There was this group on the internet called Anonymous, right? And they are completely done. I think they still exist, but the amount of times that they bragged about things that they were going to do, it just went on for year after year after year of them saying crap they were going to do, and nothing happened. Nothing. Julian Assange, he's a real deal. He's not hiding behind some mask. He really did what they said, what Anonymous said they would do. Project Veritas has done things that Anonymous said they would do. It's phenomenal. The 17 movement, man, it's a weird one. It's a super duper weird one. What I like about the place where we are with the 17 movement in 2019 is that we will know probably by fall of this year whether or not that movement is complete crap or real. And that's nice. We can just sit back, relax, not worry about it, keep our eyes open. I will say that pound for pound, everything that he said would happen has either taken place or looks like even the propaganda press is having a hard time concealing his intent. Now, we know that a ton of channels and social media outlets have been banned, completely wiped off the map. It's possible this channel could get wiped off the map. I have feelings that it won't, but it could. Luckily, we're now finding other places to put the videos, so it won't really matter. But you are, if we got kicked off this platform and we had to go to BitChute or Brighteon, hey, without those two platforms becoming insanely popular, we just lost millions of potential viewers, didn't we? Not good. But that's happening. And a lot of us are completely furious about the fact that the administration is sitting there watching this. Now, there have been a lot of tweets about responding to this lack of freedom of speech. There needs to be a bill passed to protect the First Amendment. And it doesn't matter what you think you are in terms of a private corporation. There used to be a point where they didn't let females play golf, right? It's gentlemen only, gentlemen only, ladies forbidden. That's what golf supposedly stands for. It's probably bullshit, but golf doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the hell that word would be in the Latin dictionary. To hit a small ball into smaller holes, I don't know. But they had to petition. You got a private country club, and it can't be discriminatory against women. What was the next one up? The next one up was Jews. Jews weren't allowed to be members of golf clubs. Or country clubs, I should say. Well, they petitioned, and they got let in. And then it was different races, like the blacks couldn't do it. They had to petition, and they got in. We've been here before for different agendas. And we got to get in there again under the same pretense to get freedom of speech enforced. If you have some sort of media discussion board, the only thing that you could ban and erase would be a crime. There's a lot of leeway with that. There's a tremendous amount of leeway with a crime being the reason why things get banned. I'll give you some examples that we'll have to be careful about. And this show would have to edit some of its videos or pull videos down completely if this kind of stuff was to be enforced. One, if you threaten someone's safety in any way, shape, or form online, in a word, then it's happening right now. People can turn in your comment to the FBI, and they can come get you with the federal marshal to say, you just threatened someone's life online. Come with me. You're going to get booked. And we're going to get you a record going because you obviously can't control your mouth. You're a big tough guy or tough girl when you're all by yourself posting from wherever you're posting. Now, that stuff's calmed down quite a bit. But if someone gets, you might have a language barrier that simply says you start using foul language, then we have to protect, younger children from seeing that, younger human beings from seeing that. And so we either ban your comment from being viewed by people that haven't proven their age, or because we don't have that feature on our website and can't afford it, we get an exemption to pull out those comments because we just can't afford to have that go out. If you do hate speech, now there's hate speech that's ridiculous and there's hate speech that is very real. If you're being racist in a comment, well, there you go. You're gone. If you are being hateful in a way that's like homophobic or something like that, you're just way off topic. You're probably gone. You're muted out of the conversation. You'll see your comments, but no one else will. I wrote one of these systems 15 years ago. I have to say, this is a little bit of a digression, but it's something that means something to me different nowadays. I got into a startup in 1997 for a couple years, and our product was a chat room, a Java chat room, one of the very first ones out there. And I had a lot of experience writing internet chat rooms in Perl, believe it or not. And so I used to watch, and so these chat rooms were all, sectioned off for topics, television shows, whatever. But we had this whole wing of our site called Kids Corner. Of course, we spelled corner with a K to make sure children had no idea how to spell. That was funny. And you would have perverts in there constantly, advertising XXX websites to children. They'd write bots to inject this stuff into the chat room. And of course, we had to have moderators in there pulling that out, but a little kid could have clicked on something or read something, heard a word and a concept they should never hear until they choose to corrupt their mind as an adult. And then when I worked and rebuilt games.com for Atari, I was in charge of writing the chat room technology. And I started putting together this huge list of phonetic words. I put together a whole list of words that were actually the words that you're not allowed to say. And then I built another layer on top of that to respell all those words with every phonetic thing. So if it was an F, I would get rid of PH, GH, multiple Fs. I mean, they do all kinds of wild tricks. And so we taught the AI every possible way these words could be spelled. I mean, so 10 words might go to 200 words. But every time you typed the chat, I would parse what you said, and then the second that you crossed that line, I would just mute your channel to everyone else. But you saw your stuff, so you thought you were knocking out of the park. My friends that go to gyms, they sit on treadmills, and they watch TV. And the TV is not always controlled by the member, and so you get indoctrinated at these little stations. Maybe you own a gym and someone comes in and says, you know what, you should probably have 100 TVs in here. And they're like, yeah, if I could afford 100 TVs, I'd probably have the best Nautilus equipment too. And they go, oh, dude, it's free. It's free. In fact, we'll even pay you to put it in here. What? It's a revenue generating model and it'll make my bored exercising customers happy? Well, sure, put them all in there. Poof. Don't forget that, Coca-Cola, which is sold at Disneyland, is totally free to Disneyland. All this syrup gets given to Disneyland, all the parks around the world, for free. Such that when you drink that cola and you're at Disneyland and you're imprinting your mind with some of the most, cherished memories of your life, you're going to go home and drink that Coca-Cola again because it represents all these amazing memories for you. It's free to them. Well, does Coke make you healthier? It was funny, Disneyland's about 8 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And I used to have season passes when they didn't cost $1,200. And I would go, and of course the food is always Disneyland food. The food that you eat back 10 years ago was very, very processed. And, it just, if you're eating an ice cream cone, you know what you're getting into. If you're eating an ice cream sandwich, you know what you're getting into. But you try to eat pizza or pasta or what have you, chicken, it was good old-fashioned greasy-ass chicken. But then Disneyland got this, bug and got a lot of complaints from somebody. I don't even know who did it. They had no healthy food choices. And I remember the first 2 to 3 years that they started offering fruit. Beautiful fruit, man. Probably all GMO, of course. But they gave you fruit, and no one was buying this stuff. It would just sit there and die. And so, and the way that you know it was going to die is that you have a big organization like that. You can't have anyone going home with food poisoning, so they have to throw all that stuff away at night if they don't sell it. So when you're walking around at night, and the park closes around 12 to 1 o'clock, depending on what day you go in the year, and you're walking around 11 o'clock and you're looking at all these food, these fruit bins and kiosks, and they have all the same food you saw this afternoon. And it's starting to look bad. That's the other thing. It's been there for a while. It took a while for people to adapt to it. And we had 2 McDonald's within the park. One in California Park and one over by the Mississippi boat. They're both gone now. But they had to wait till the lease went up on that. I just want to make this episode because I want you guys to be aware of what is around you. And I think it's more powerful if we have a word for it. Again, I can only come up with 2 words for it right now. Maybe we can come up with a better word for it. But it needs to be something that's completely understandable. But this is straight up 1984 conditioning, isn't it? Everywhere you go, whatever agenda is on their plate, disseminated from some AP Reuters mechanism. There's a reason why all the local radio stations around the United States of America on any one particular week could be spliced together and everyone's saying exactly the same thing, breaking the same story, same emphasis on the words. about how dire these situations are. Every economic collapse in the world needs an ingredient besides shenanigans that are like the 29 crash or the subprime loans crash or the savings loan crash in the 80s. It needs the people to believe in it, to believe that there's a reason why they're going to have to tighten their belts and go with less. And it's always that go with less, go with less, go with less. But the idea that you need a bunch of things that you don't need is also right there on top. You know, I get these, we have a great electronics store down the street called Fry's. They are not everywhere in the United States, but they're spreading. I don't think any of them are in Europe, but it's Frys. And I think it's one of them has an E, and it's the Boot Company. But they are selling, they have this thing you can sign up, and they send you this code every single day. The code will last for a week for some product lines, and some of the codes will only last for a day or a weekend or something like that. As the HP helicopter flies over. But one of the emails I get every single day is the email that sells me a new TV. And they've got, they've got like, 60-inch 4K televisions for $400. I mean, unreal. Now, it used to have America used to be, probably at least 20 years ago, absolutely addicted to electronics, man. It was a way you could show off in front of your friends. You had to have a certain number of inches on your TV. It was almost as bad as, you could date a person and they'd say, well, how big is your TV, And they were more inclined to date you if you had a bigger TV. It's just strange. That's not so much that way anymore, because I think that, again, what you watch on TV has a diminishing level of reward these days. But there are some great shows out there. But think about it. I have more friends today that don't have TVs in their houses than ever before. I have more friends that say, I don't even watch TV anymore, more than ever before, because we're going to our telephones. And what the telephone allows us to do, as much as social media might be crappy, if you don't want to be indoctrinated, you simply don't subscribe to things. And if it's using your keywords of things that you've searched to determine what you should watch or what would be most likely appealing to you, then you don't get the propaganda as much. But they're trying to change the algorithm, right? What they have said at YouTube is that they've modified the recommended and trending algorithms to filter out conspiracy. And so, why would you do that? Why do they put, Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia links underneath some of my videos? Because they're worried that you're going to change your mind, that you're going to wake up. They're actively participating in a globalist effort to keep us ignorant about the world. So, one of these things that I think that we don't want to accept sometimes is, what if we're on a conspiracy and you can always find the videos of that conspiracy organically without having to subscribe to a channel, without having to do a search? You're always being presented a particular conspiracy. Now, at the point of this recording, I'm not exactly sure which ones are promoted and which ones aren't. But sometimes you guys will come into the Facebook group and you will have noticed that you're still getting a ton of a particular conspiracy. Well, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest, evidence by sheer repetition of the pattern, that they have created a bunch of disinfo conspiracies, and they want those to be looked at constantly and believed. Now, why the 17 movement gets attacked as much as it does is really bizarre to me, because there is a forbidden fruit mechanism to the mind of a young person, and young people are the people they are trying to keep from being awake. But the articles that are written about the 17 movement are aimed towards adults, not the kids, because kids aren't going to get into this, hey kids, this is bad. They're not going to read that article. Kids don't read articles until they're probably, 17, 18 years old, if they're an early adopter to propaganda and normal information. which is propaganda. So there's this big saying that goes around, and I do like the saying because we're definitely suffering the slings and arrows of this particular saying, which is you don't get the flak, F-L-A-K, until you're over the target. Now, if for any reason one of you doesn't know what the hell that means when a bomber or a bunch of fighter planes would fly over a target that they're about to bomb, the flak guns, these big guns that shoot these rounds that go way up in the sky and then they blow up on their own before they hit anything and they throw shrapnel everywhere, it's to shred the vehicles flying up in the air. So you knock all the bombers out of the sky before they drop their bombs, or they don't at least hit the sensitive targets. It drops in a field somewhere if you're lucky, or over the ocean if you can stop them before they get over your land. But we have the weirdest clarifications going on. Now, we expect if we say the moon landing was a hoax, yeah, of course, they're going to put something on that. If I did a dedicated episode to any of the assassinations that have gone on in the last century of famous leaders in the 60s, they're going to put disclaimers underneath that. We expect that. There's a lot of national pride they're trying to protect. There's just don't wake up to people doing this kind of algorithms and that sort of thing. But they put them underneath the reptilian episode. I did an episode on reptilian aliens, and I went back to look at it, and I was like, oh my God, there's a Wikipedia, I think, link underneath that's talking about reptilian aliens and the theory of it all. Why is YouTube driving traffic to Wikipedia? There's no rev share there. They don't own each other. There's no rev share with Britannica. So why are they driving traffic directly to these websites? I mean, isn't Wikipedia, was it supported by the people, supposedly? And what's really funny about Wikipedia, and it's pathetic actually, is that we have a lot of amazing people in this world that have accomplished a lot of amazing things. But if you try to start a web page in Wikipedia to cover a scientist like an Eric Dollard or something like that, he may have his own page, I don't know. You'll have all these fucking nerd Nazi information disinfo police coming in and turning off your page and getting rid of your page. And all the excuses that they give you are complete lies. I tried to create some pages for some famous rockers, and they came in there and were throwing out all the changes, throwing out the whole page, and trying to tell me that because the guy wasn't dead yet, he couldn't have his own page. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Every single actor in IMDb that has made a blockbuster movie has a Wikipedia page, whether it be small or big. And a lot of their spouses get little teeny tiny pages, like a paragraph or two. They haven't accomplished anything, but they have their own pages. A buddy of mine and I, we worked on a book for him. We published it. It sold thousands and thousands of copies. And so we wanted to put in the references section down below, you can get this book if you want to know more about this person. Every single rocker, anybody who's in Wikipedia can put that at the bottom. They kicked out the link saying that we were trying to sell product. I've worked with a very famous 80s rock band, and it changed hands. It changed ownership. So the links to the website changed from the old guard to the new guard. Well, we had to fight it out in Wikipedia. And we said, look, you are driving misrepresentation to our competitor that's been thrown out of the band. Meaning you're throwing them to people that could say, we can't drive any of our customers to the tour dates, to the next album that's coming out, any of that kind of stuff. And so I mentioned in one of the comments, look, if we need to get you to talk to our legal representation about this, we will. Well, then that was a double strike because we threatened legal action against Wikipedia. Are you fucking kidding me? So someone could put some information out there about you, link it off to someone who hates you, and you can't change it. And if you say, look, I'm going to legally nail you for this because it's defamation, they'll double strike your account to never be able to touch the page until your attorneys do show up and try to threaten these people. But the place is held together by a bunch of anonymous nerds out there who I don't know what they do to each other to make sure that they've got this privilege. It is as deep state as it could get at Wikipedia. One of the other elements that occurs a lot, and it's been changed quite a bit, and it's happened in all kinds of different areas, are the rating systems for commercial products. The first time I saw it was when Yahoo, and they probably still have this, but Yahoo has a movie section on their website, or at least did. I'm sure they probably still have it. I haven't gone there in a million years because of this problem. But a movie would release, and within minutes of it releasing, you would have tens of thousands of comments about how great a movie was. But once you start reading the comments, you start seeing the same comment over and over again. You start looking at the accounts that are making the comments. They joined literally that day. Their English is bad. And the movie will not have released in a foreign country yet. That's another funny one. And so you started to realize these studios were paying for essentially fraudulent reviews. So it's literally happening. Someone from a studio writes a check to somebody who then writes a check to someone overseas. And you've seen those videos of it's China, Russia, and India will have 1 million cell phones on these bookshelf racks, all dialed in, sending a propaganda about a particular subject, voting something up. What happened when Amy Schumer created a really crappy show on Netflix? Well, Netflix had a commenting section and a thumb up, thumb down. When she got nailed completely into oblivion for creating a horrible show, and just, what Amy Schumer's whole game is to sell you demoralization to women, to get you guys to absolutely screw up your life and then feel good about it in the end. And to continue doing that. That's what her movies do too. She is a shill for demoralization. To each their own. But if you don't want your kids to grow up with that mentality, you better censor that stuff off the channel or don't buy the channel. So I think Netflix went all the way down to just the thumb up, thumb down, no comments, right? They changed it enough that I don't know exactly where it is today. Once I find out the integrity of information is really bad, I just stop messing around with it. But we are Roddy Piper, and they live. If you're awake, you see it constantly. And, a funny thing was that I had this conversation with a buddy of mine. I mentioned a bit of the conversation in a previous episode here, but we're talking about God and, the reality of Jesus and all that stuff. And he's sort of been in it and out of it. And he still believes that Jesus was a real person. But, he doesn't, he lives by a moral code that he learned in church. And that's just sort of how he lives, sort of like me. He kept talking about how certain parts of certain stories and claims over history can't be true because God wouldn't allow those things to happen. And I said to him, "Oh, really?" I said, "Who do you think's running the world right now, man? If you believe in religion and a Satan and a God, who runs this place right now?" I said, "It's Satan, right?" And he kind of looked up and he goes, it was like he hadn't really thought about it like that. And he goes, "Well, that sure is true, isn't it?" And I could see his mind thinking about a million different things of like his whole doctrine doesn't work. If you think God needs to come down and forbid evil from occurring, then we've been forsaken on this planet. I don't think that's what's going on, but that's the attitude you'd have to digest at least once in your lifetime to understand what's going on, to get yourself to the next level of, okay, well, that's probably not the way it's working necessarily. There's got to be a reason for this and a purpose to this. Rebuilding society from the bottom up, right? That's the theme of this show. Probably by the middle of season 1, that was literally something I was thinking about as I chose all the episode topics. And again, season 1's a little boring because it's all about the fundamentals of human nature, which isn't as sexy as moon missions and flat earth stuff and reptilians and aliens and all that kind of stuff. But it's critically important to have the conversation. And if you don't have a circle of people in your life that are having that conversation, then go back to season 1 remastered. DeepThoughtsRadio.com, click season 1. Get some of those subjects refreshed in your mind. And just while we're on this subject of sort of waking up and looking at the world differently, I've had multiple people come to me for a little bit of guidance. And when I have time, I will lean in as deep as I can and as genuinely as I can to help out. But I'll tell you the one episode that I made a long time ago, which I refer people to a lot. I don't know if anyone watches it, but because it comes up and it seems to play a role in people's lives, is the friendship episode. I think it's in season 1. If it's not there, it's in season 2. But it's all about the distinction of people that we surround ourselves with, and to ensure that we understand how deeply we know individuals so that we don't sensationalize them in our lives. You know, you could meet a famous person, and while you're with them, you get along great, and they enjoy your company and what have you, but they're a very busy person, so when you say goodbye to them, you may not see them for 2 or 3 years. I've had this happen to me many times with some of the people I mentioned to you in this show. It doesn't mean that if you got back in their circle, you wouldn't be, right back where you left off. But it's important that you understand that that's sort of your limitation with that individual. You'll have acquaintances that you call your friends. You'll have people that are just your friends you'll call best friends. It's important to know the difference, because this is how you build your perception of who you are, and as you are trying to wake up and get this stuff away from you, you want to be with people that also don't want it around them. So when you kick up your pastimes about how to spend a weekend together, a day together, a night together, whatever, you're not finding yourself in a place that you don't want to be. One of the tough things in America is if you're not a drinker. If you're not a drinker, it can be tough to spend time with people on weekends, on vacations, what have you. And maybe that's when you let it go. Maybe that's when you do ingest a little bit of alcohol. But if you are sort of done with it, you have seen the damage it's done to your family and friends, you don't want it in your body because you know it hurts your body, it's going to make you forfeit in the United States of America more than 50% of the choices that you have when you hang out with people on average. And as well, there's a sort of a back blow situation where if you let them know that you don't like to drink, you will be extra uninvited. You will have people that where you would call your friends and your acquaintances never report back to you because they know they drink and they feel judged when they're around you. Whether you're doing it or not, it doesn't matter. They don't like the fact they drink either, and so they have to keep you out of their life because it's a mirror to their thing that they want to quit. So how do we get rid of these indoctrination stations, man? I think that each individual example has to be handled a different way, and I don't know what you do about the ones that are right in your face and you have to sit in a chair waiting for your flight and there's not much you can do. I know that at a gas station you can put the nozzle in your tank, hit the auto, fill, go sit in your car. And if everybody at the gas station who works there is having to deal with this video feed, people scratching the screens with graffiti or whatever, maybe that's something else, That's illegal, though. We'd never do something illegal. But you just never watch it, and they're like, you know what? We had this option. It's the big gas carrier that's bringing them these pumps. But obviously, they're taking a kickback from the networks for people watching their content. It's always some financial thing. But if they start looking at the numbers and going, look, we're spending $100 million a year putting these little iPads inside gas pumps, but no one's ever watching them, we're not going to do it anymore. And it could go away like that. For airports, well, there's probably 2 techniques to make it fully go away. One, well, there's some indirect ways, which we can talk about in a second, but you could write a letter to the airport and say, I don't want to see this stuff. And obviously they're going to look at it and laugh and throw it away. But the more those come in, all corporations consider a single letter of complaint to be worth multiple letters of complaint. And, I've heard I can't remember what industry it was, but I heard that in one industry, and I can't remember what the hell industry it was, but they considered one letter 10,000 votes against that thing. So what if there were 10,000 letters? You multiply it times 10,000. Then it starts looking like, maybe this big giant pain in the ass of keeping all these TVs everywhere is not worth it. Now, it's probably not going to happen like that for an airport. But some of you know the legal system really well. And you know all the inner workings of how class action lawsuits work, how these offense lawsuits work, where someone's getting tens of millions of dollars out of institutions because they were offended about something. All those statues that represent the history of the United States are being petitioned to be torn down. Someone's handling those cases. That's obviously pretty frivolous stuff. But that particular thing's working. Now, what I wouldn't particularly mind is that, CNN has stores inside airports. Now, every airport I go to, the bookstores, which sell candy and all the other tchotchkes that go along with wherever you're visiting, all the books are liberal books, every single one of them. That's something that could be put into a lawsuit. There's not equal representation for the parties. When Stormy Daniels' book came out, it was on the counter in a big pile of her books. I didn't see anyone walking away with the book, but they were printed and everywhere for everyone to digest because they had a leftist agenda. Now, if the normal stores were to do 50-50 split representation, but you had a choice to go to a propaganda-laced CNN store, all right, well, you're a person that knows what you're doing. You're walking in there. You're going to a leftist organization. You're going to hear leftist views. All right. Maybe the only thing that we could do legally is say, if you're going to let CNN open a store, you must have, by law, a Fox News store or some other store that's going to represent the right in some probably propaganda fashion, but at least it's a start, right? And, there's what's so funny about it is, you have these religious factions all over the world that can get bent out of shape about anything. And, those folks could write letters and say, I don't want my kids seeing any of this stuff. It's all stuff that our religion doesn't allow into the minds of a child, so I don't want you to have any of it. Good luck fighting that lawsuit. It would be funny that you have, again, this freedom of speech thing that some corporation would use the First Amendment to keep propaganda in their gas tanks or gas stations, at the gas pump, but you don't have the first freedom of speech right to, or freedom of religion, right to keep that stuff out of your family's life. Now, a lot of cable boxes and definitely media outlets in your telephones, they all have child censorship built in. Again, like I said, when I learned that Alexa, the unit out of Bezos Group, I was given one for Christmas, so I definitely honored its use, but I keep it in a very specific place in my house. It only gets turned on when I need to wake up in the morning. But I asked for it to tell me a bedtime story. And the thing made me go into my app to turn on all this parental crap, to turn on a bedtime story, and I'm sitting there going, well, just don't tell me, Slaughterhouse 5 to my child, just tell me Freaky Friday or something. You don't have to have me turn on some feature to let my child hear a bedtime story. Just don't tell, the original Grimm Brothers stories where all the kids die at the end. You'll be just fine. We have to keep this stuff out of our lives. Again, if you're awake, you can see stuff all day long and it won't affect you. It'll just, if anything, it will infuriate you a little bit that it's being played in a bunch of places, or it's a bunch of people around you sitting there just eating it all up. The main reason why propaganda is so destructive to society is that it promotes divide. Hate, 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 hate. That's all it's been meant to do. To guide the minds away from the ruling class, back down to the people down below. So the bottom of the pyramid hates the bottom of the pyramid in their eyes. I think you feel me. I won't stretch this out any longer. Hopefully you guys like the journey. Please let me know what you think about this whole subject down below. And if you've been able to mediate this stuff out of your life, please share your techniques. If any of you can think of any other strategies to legally start pounding these things out of our lives, please share it. If nothing else, don't share it and go off and do those things. Some of you people are geniuses at this stuff, or you know people who are geniuses at this stuff. People have gone through similar lawsuits and won. Go round up those people. Go round up the attorneys, the law firms, and say, look, you could make a ton of money getting a settlement out of this thing. Why not bring all that money into your partnership? Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. It's where you can change feeds from audio to video. There's a locked Facebook group with some of the coolest, most tolerant, really tolerant people in the world. We don't promote divide. We have a Twitter account in case you want to get the feed that way. It's starting to grow. We have 2 ways to donate to the site. We have patreon.com. It's in the link down below. And we have a PayPal link on the website. Again, as I will say several times, we have an all-new Season 1 remastered channel on YouTube. It will only ever have, as far as I can tell now, only ever have 100 episodes. In fact, it won't have all 100 because I redid episode 17. And I decided at the last second to go ahead and put it into the Season 4 as a brand new episode, which I think is 374, somewhere in there. It's just a whole new round of information. That episode will most likely get redone as I refine the information. And I forgot to mention one of the keywords. I can't remember who exactly posted it. Maybe it was Tim or Dave. One of the listeners posted into the Facebook group about apricot seeds being banned in Australia. And I can't imagine that actually being true, because there's a lot of these. If you're looking at a website with just this crazy URL, please understand that's probably fake news on a whole new level. People just trying to get you to clickbait into seeing advertising. They don't even care what they say. They have no agenda whatsoever except to bait you over. But the effect that B17 has in your body is called the cyanide effect. And so I described it on an atomic level. When you reference it in other conversations, they will talk about the cyanide effect, and that is essentially how it performs. When you eat cyanide, it attacks your nervous system. That's why you die, as I understand it. So it's attacking cancer and everything else that's an invader in your body on that level. So that's a little correction or addition to how that actual vitamin works in your body. It will be a sad day if everything that cures cancer is prescription only or outright banned. But the idea that, go to any drugstore in America, it's not some health food store, try to find B17 and they won't even know what you're talking about, that's your sign. That's a sign that it really works and it's going to put oncologists out of business globally. We are on BitChute now, so it's the channel's name is Deep Thoughts, just by itself. I wanted to get that one because that's how people kind of refer to it, as opposed to Deep Thoughts Radio. Radio I put on there because I thought this was going to actually air on the radio station. We had the previous channel on MK Ultra Radio. So anyway, until we do another episode, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out.